Hey, welcome to this podcast. Myself, David Marshall, and my guide, Aaron, who you will hear on this podcast, welcome you to this brand new experience to help you understand the nature of who you are. We're going to be exploring the nature of your immortality, help you gain an actual experience of your true, deeper, broader nature, your soul consciousness. We're going to help you explore into past and future lives. We're going to take the lid off the latest spiritual understandings, and if you really want to gain an understanding that will transform your life, you're in exactly the right place. If you would like to download a free book, please go to thedreamwecallearth.com and you can download my book there. It's a beautiful spiritual story and there's some audio training as well, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's get on with the podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. Take care.
Hi and welcome to this first lesson. This is called How We Perceive Reality and the Limitation of the Five Senses. So I'm going to take you through a whole process here of exploring and the basis of trying to understand, to help you understand the nature of reality begins with this. So it's an essential groundwork of the architecture of understanding. So let's just get straight into it. So let me just ask you a question. So how do we experience this reality? Okay, how do we experience this reality? So essentially, how do you know that you're here? How do you know that you're here? Now, some of you have got it straight away, but others might go, well, I don't know. But okay, I mean, it's the five senses. The five senses provide you, they provide me also, with an experience of reality. Now, we have an emotional experiences, we have thoughts, of course, but our five senses actually create our three-dimensional experience. It's the only reason you actually identify with physical reality, identify yourself as physical or as male, as female, whatever it would be, is because your five senses actually create the three-dimensional experience, okay? So what does modern physics tell us about the limitation of these senses then? So is there light, is there sound, is there experience, is there a reality beyond the five senses? So we know that ultraviolet light, subsonic sound, for example, dark matter, all those things, they actually exist, but they exist outside of our reality. Even things like, Wi-Fi and whatever, they exist, but we don't experience them. So what that means is that light and sound, and this is obviously proven and pretty simple to understand, that light and sound exist outside of your range of senses. So it's pretty easy to see then that the role of our senses is as a filter. They filter out information. So our ears filter out information of above and below certain ranges in terms of measurement, and they give us one version of a much greater reality. So the five senses create a three-dimensional experience. I'm having it right now. But they do that by actually filtering out information from a much broader and a much bigger reality than we actually experience. And that's important to understand. So what do you think would happen then if we didn't filter out any information through our senses at all? So if you took every single filter off all of your senses, what do you think you would experience? Well, as you can imagine, I'd imagine you'd recognize it would be uncontrollable. It would be too intense. It would be almost intolerable because, again, you would see that the role of the senses is to create the experience that we can cope with. So there's a far greater reality out there of information, and the senses allow us to hone that down enough to give an experience that we can actually cope with, because it provides a workable environment for us, something that we can relate to, something that seems to be under our control to some other degree. Now, our senses provide an experience of solid three-dimensional world, and that's part of a greater reality, isn't it? Yeah, we can all accept that pretty easily. So, but another question would be, is what's really solid? What is our world created from? What is it created from? And if you explore this at all, then you know where I'm going with this. But we've got to put it in context. We've got to build. It's like building a meal, getting everything in the right place. So first of all, we understand that our five senses actually filter out information, providing us with the appearance of a solid world. But what's our world created from? Well, science will tell us, and it's quantum physics. It's atoms, electrons, and quarks. Ultimately, everything in our world is created from energy, the same energy. And so it's like a dream, that's created through the energy, the same energy, the energy of thought. Okay, so physical reality really doesn't exist in the solid way that we think. It exists as part of a broader reality, but also everything within it is actually non-physical. It's not actually solid, quite literally, and it actually only appears solid because our senses make it that way, and it's all made of the same stuff. So the pen that I can hold in my hand here is made of the same stuff as the microphone, as the cup I'm drinking my coffee out of, and my eye, and my ear, and my heart, and the window pane I'm looking out of. A bit like a dream. You could say a dream, all the same energy, the energy of what we could call thought. Okay, and in a quite literal way, what the senses do is they literally camouflage, if you like, a bigger reality. They hide a bigger reality from us, and they show us a reality that appears solid. It appears separate, but in fact, it's something completely different. It's almost the opposite. And so camouflage is a good way to think about it, which is we're seeing something, but it's kind of overlaid onto something much, much different, much, much bigger, much more complex, something where experience and knowledge and consciousness and information lies beyond the five senses. So if you accept that, then can you accept that whatever you experience within this reality is created actually through the filtering out of information, and that it's all made of the same energy, that it's the senses actually that give the appearance of a solid world? So to give us a reference point that we can all experience, that we experience the five senses as ego consciousness. Okay, that through the ego, the point in which we kind of connect with physical reality, we only experience our own construction, because who is actually making the world that you see? Think about it. Your five senses create and construct a reality. So who's the only person that sees your reality? Well, it's you, isn't it? You literally create your own personal reality out of a mass reality. And that is the starting point that you want to really get to when you want to really start to think about the nature of who you are and also the nature of reality. So just have a think about that for a second and let that filter in, because that's really, really, truly important. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is just think of this then as a state of consciousness rather than a physical reality. So we've explored how the five senses are creating, filtering out information. It appears solid, but it isn't, and actually it's all made of the same stuff. Okay, so let's stop calling it physical reality and let's start calling it a state of consciousness. And we can also consider our dream lives and experience as another state of consciousness. Okay, so the state of consciousness we call physical reality, and then we've got a state of consciousness that we call dream reality. And obviously the presumption is one is real and one isn't, that one comes before the other, and that they are somehow different. So let's go on and let's explore that a little bit. So given the information that we've got now, do you feel it's possible to understand the nature of reality by simply using the five senses? That's the question. Do you think that by just looking at the five senses and going, this is all that there is, I'm going to understand the whole nature of reality or my spirituality or the nature of who I am simply through the five senses, can possibly give you the answers that you want? Well, it can't, because that would be bonkers, wouldn't it? When you understand and see how limited it is, and that the five senses and that this state of consciousness is so limited in our experience, you can accept that you've got to do something else. You've got to understand it in a very, very different way, because our senses limit our view of a far greater reality. So it is impossible to understand reality through the five senses, because our senses create a version of reality from a far greater version of reality. And that's why the term is called camouflage. It's camouflaging a broader reality. So we discovered that our senses create our version, your personal reality. And that's another thing you need to take from this, which is that it's creating your own personal reality. Okay, in your waking state, it's creating your own personal reality. So let's explore what we call a dream state of consciousness and see if there's any similarities at all. So I'd ask you now, just see if you can remember a dream that you felt was real. I had one the other night. In fact, I have one on many nights where when you're in it, it feels so real that you feel it. It could have been daily life if you hadn't have woken up, okay, when you were actually in that dream. So we all have them to some rather degree, but often they are so real. So if you can understand that everybody has those, okay, when you're in a really good dream, it appears real, it appears solid, it's got emotional content and experience, it has time and space, it appears like physical reality, okay. So how do you create a dream? How do you create a dream? What do you do? And what's it created from? Well, it's created through thought, isn't it? It's created through thought. That's the easiest way to think about it. And where does it happen? So you've got this thing, you're creating it through thought, yeah? And where does it happen? Where does it happen? Because most of people think that dreams happen in your mind, don't they? That it's in your, the grey stuff in your head. But actually, try to expand that a little bit more and think that actually a dream happens within yourself. Okay, somewhere within yourself, that as you understand it, a dream is happening that appears real, it appears solid, there is time and space and talking to people. Now, there are also other experiences that happens within dreams that aren't limited by what we would class as physical laws, but still when you're in them, there is time and space and people and emotional content. So if you have a think about it, the next question is, who creates the dream? Who creates the experiences in the dream? So who creates the landscapes? Who creates the people? Who creates the sound and the distance? Who creates the three-dimensional experience of space and time within the dream? Who creates the apparent solidity within that dream that appears so real? Who creates that? And the answer ultimately has to be you, doesn't it? It's your dream. You create it. You go to sleep. You experience it. You create it. Now, you might not understand why you create it or exactly the process of it, but you do create the dream itself because it's you doing it. Nobody else is going to sleep and dreaming your dream. You're the one that's experiencing it. So in which case, what role do you think the senses play within that experience? So how do you know that you're in the dream? Okay, so how do you know you're in the dream? How do you know you're in the dream? The solid dream with time and space and all that kind of stuff. Well, you come back to the senses, don't you? You come back to this idea that you have senses that create the experience in its totality. You know that you exist outside of that dream because you wake up and it goes and you still exist. So you experience outside that. There's an experience outside of that dream within you, but within the dream, you're doing the same thing. You filter out the part of you that's asleep. You create an experience that appears physical. It appears solid. It's three-dimensional. It has emotional and tactile experiences within them. So within that dream state, what part of the dream do you think is separate from you? Okay, if your senses create the experience, they create the three dimensions, the experience of time and space, the people, the environment. What part is separate from you, the creator of the dream? If you're looking at the ocean, is the ocean separate from you? If you're looking at the sky, is the sky? If you're looking at people, are they separate from you? Or are you the creator? So are they separate? No, nothing is separate. You and your reality in that dream state are one. You're made from the same energy, thought, and you quite literally are your environment. You are your environment. Now, it might appear that objects and other people are separate. It might appear as though time and space exists, okay? But it doesn't. It's camouflage in the same way. So, do we have physical senses when we create the dream? Do you have, because that's the language people use, isn't it? The physical five senses. Do you have physical five senses when you create the dream? No, you do not. Okay, there's no physical senses, and yet it appears solid and it appears time as if it appears like there's space as well. So there's nothing really physical going on in a dream. Okay? There's nothing really physical, and it's all made of the same stuff. So it's nothing really physical going on here either when we explore it. This is a state of consciousness we call waking. We have another state of consciousness we call dreaming. So could you accept possibly make the small leap, fairly small leap, that both realities are created in a similar way. Okay, they're both created by filtering out information, including other parts of the self. They're both made of energy, both are a state of consciousness created by the senses, even though they're not physical. Even within the dream state is created by our senses, and we have physical, supposedly, experiences, and yet in the dream we have no physical senses, do we? Just think about that. Because this is the basis of understanding that you create your own reality. So how do you know that you're not dreaming right now? I mean, could anybody prove that to yourself that you're not dreaming right now? Absolutely 100%. Because I guarantee that you absolutely cannot. So just let that filter in. And as you do, just consider the proposal. So could it be that the reality we experience in our intimate daily lives, our personal lives, is created in the same method, same manner as other states of consciousness? Now, we call that a dream. Okay? And if that were the case, of that this is non-physical, just like a dream, and that it's made of thought here also, would it answer the questions concerning psychic awareness, the power of thought, coincidences, healing, psychic ability, all those types of things, because it's an environment created through thought? So is there any reason at all that both experiences could not be similar states of consciousness created in similar ways, in the same way? Can anybody prove that it's not the case? Because I absolutely cannot. So the question is, what implications does it have for you within your life? Now, this is the basis of understanding how you form your reality, that you create your own reality. But it's important to say, I'm not saying that this is a dream, okay? And I'm stating that now because of the connotations that most people have, and they think what a dream is. But what I am saying is that it's a state of consciousness created in the same manner, and that it's real, it's relevant, and it's part of a much greater reality, and that it's one aspect of a reality that we've chosen to experience and to work with at this time. But it's not all of reality, and that we exist actually outside of it also, just like you exist outside of the dream. So to conclude, number one, both dream state and waking states are made of energy. The same energy creates everything within each state of consciousness. 2, both states of consciousness are created by the same senses, by filtering out a far greater reality. But the truth is, there's no physical senses in your dream. There's no physical senses here. This is not a physical place. Okay? And because of that, you experience and create your own version of reality that nobody else sees. Number 3, as in the dream state, I'm going to propose to you that no person, no event, no environment, no ocean, no sky, no brick, I'm looking around my room here, no computer, no box, no guitar, no book is actually separate from you, that you create your own reality as easily as you speak your words or walk down the street. It just happens. It's just what you do. And that if you accept this theory, which is what science is coming to explore and accept, if you look into it a little bit more, it'll answer all your questions that you've ever had about why aspects of your life aren't working out. That you haven't been able to find an answer for because you've been thinking it's a physical place, which is the wrong road to go down. And so I would finally suggest that this view of reality is truly the only one that will ever give you the power that is yours by nature. And by understanding the nature of reality, you will quite simply empower yourself and experience yourself as a conscious creator in ways that you never ever would have before. So that's lesson 1. The next lesson we're going to go into and really go deeper and deeper and have a look at the nature of multidimensional reality and lots of other things. But you might want to replay that, let it flow through you, see how you feel, and I'll see you on the next lesson.